Tomorrow. What shall we make of tomorrow? If today is the reckoning, then tomorrow must be the response. But where does restoration begin? Not in speeches, nor in promises, nor in the empty rituals of politics. It begins in the only place it can, within ourselves. A republic cannot be saved by its institutions alone, laws, constitutions, courts, elections. These are but scaffolding. They do not stand without a foundation, and that foundation is the people. If the people are unmoored, if they are ruled by grievance, by appetite, by fear, then no law will save them, no leader will redeem them. If the people themselves are lost, then the republic is lost with them. We have been taught to believe that we are powerless, that history is something done to us rather than something we shape. But this is a falsehood. The truth is that the fate of a nation is not determined by its rulers alone. It is determined by its citizens, by what they accept, by what they demand, by what they are willing to stand for. If we are to restore reason, we must reclaim the habits of thought that we have abandoned. We must question, we must listen, we must doubt, we must seek to understand before we seek to judge. If we are to restore morality, we must hold ourselves to a higher standard than those we condemn. We must not mistake vengeance for justice or self-righteousness for virtue. We must remember that morality is not merely a tool to wield against our enemies, but a mirror in which we must see ourselves. If we are to restore purpose, we must remember that liberty is not the right to do as we please, but the responsibility to govern ourselves, to live not as individuals alone, but as a people. We must choose to build rather than to destroy, to create rather than to consume, to serve rather than to rule, but we cannot restore what we do not understand. Education, the foundation of restoration. We must educate ourselves, not with propaganda, not with the comforting lies of factional loyalty, but with truth. Real education is neither indoctrination nor mere vocational training. It is the development of the mind, the sharpening of judgment, the capacity to distinguish the essential from the trivial, the real from the false. It is learning to think. The founders of this republic, despite their flaws and contradictions, understood that knowledge was the safeguard of freedom. Jefferson wrote that if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Franklin warned that democracy was always one step from tyranny if the people lacked the wisdom to guard it. Washington, in his farewell address, cautioned against faction and the corruption of reason by unchecked ambition. Yet today, we have forsaken the intellectual inheritance of the Republic. We do not educate for wisdom, we educate for compliance. We do not seek understanding, we seek affirmation. We do not debate, we shout. We do not learn, we consume. A people who will not think for themselves will be ruled by those who think only of themselves. If we are to reclaim the Republic, we must first reclaim ourselves. We must read not to confirm what we already believe, but to challenge it. We must seek facts, not slogans. We must recognize that learning is not a passive act, but an active responsibility, that ignorance is not an excuse, but a failure. We must resist the seduction of easy answers. We must understand what we have lost. The spirit of the Republic. The Republic was never meant to be an empire. It was never meant to be a mere tax revolt. It was never meant to be a vessel for ideology, oligarchy, or faction. It was an idea, a radical, fragile, difficult idea, that a free people could and should govern themselves, not by force, not by wealth, not by divine right, but by reason and consent. This idea has been betrayed not by one party, not by one movement, but by all who have sought power for its own sake, who have turned democracy into a game of conquest, who have mistaken governance for domination. The Republic was meant to be a living thing, a constant dialogue, a place where principles could be tested against reality, where reason could temper passion, where justice could stand apart from vengeance. But we have let it become something else. We have let it become a battleground for competing tribes, each seeking to impose its will rather than to govern in common cause. We have allowed it to be captured by interests, by ideologues, by oligarchs, and finally by would-be tyrants who have no stake in the future of the people they claim to serve. We have mistaken cynicism for wisdom. We have mistaken manipulation for leadership. We have mistaken spectacle for governance. But the Republic is not yet lost. If we understand what has been taken, we can take it back. If we remember what the Republic was meant to be, not a possession, not a weapon, not an empire, but an ideal, we can begin the work of restoring it, not through empty gestures, not through rage or grievance, but through the slow, difficult work of becoming a people worthy of self-governance again. The road to restoration is not a single act, nor a single moment. It is 1,000 small choices made every day by each of us. What shall we make of tomorrow? That choice is ours.